we have got a trailblazer of a business entrepreneur, I'll tell you that, who is doing all things in the wellness space and has created an incredible brand called Symbiotica, who has been one of the fastest growing companies. I think it's grown about 440% over the last few years. They do supplements, they do vitamins, they do all things natural and organic. And we're joined by the founder, the entrepreneur, and somewhat of an influence on social media, Shahab Elmi. Welcome.
We were talking offline before we went live about football clubs and such. It's amazing the shift you made into this like beautiful, incredible voice, power presentation. That was amazing, man.
I had my game face on for those of you watching on YouTube. Yes, Shahab may be a very successful entrepreneur, but I was disagreeing with him in terms of his taste when it comes to football. He supports Chelsea. I used to support Arsenal, but not so much of a fan now. Shahab, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur nowadays, it seems. Everybody calls themselves an entrepreneur in one shape or fashion. What does entrepreneurialism really mean to you before we go into the background and story behind you and the brand?
Yeah, what a beautiful question. And my answer surprises, I think, most. Because I think if you think about entrepreneurship, you think about the potential for financial success, high-end wealth. Of course, that's part of it. But my definition is around freedom. And under the umbrella of freedom is time. And the most valuable commodity is time. It's the only thing you can't buy back. So if you can build yourself an environment where you control some aspect of your time, whether you believe in God or cosmos, most of our time is not control. We have control of some subset of time. And that makes it the most powerful thing in the world. If you can become an entrepreneur and be able to find extra time or control your time or align your time versus a standard 9-to-5 job where those times are for the most part locked in, that's my definition of a true entrepreneur.
And it's a beautiful definition because I think most people are chasing for freedom. Financial freedom gives you options and it gives you choice. Most people get stuck in what's called the golden cage. They get responsibilities, they get a mortgage, they get rent. They reach a period where they think, well, I can't be an entrepreneur. I'm frightened of being an entrepreneur. What happens if I fail? Then I could lose everything. For you, did entrepreneurialism come naturally or was it something that you came across at a certain point in your life?
I'm Persian, so you can argue that it's embedded, hard-coded into our DNA potentially. Also, it's a cultural thing. I think that Iranian culture, we've had a lot of Iranian guests on the show. Maz Jarbani, a dear friend, I think was on before as well. In our culture, building and scaling, it's what we do. It's part of our reality. Having said that, I was really late to the game as an entrepreneur for the most part. I worked in corporate America for 13 years and really didn't get into my first business until early 30s. I had my first company actually when I was 19 or 20. That was okay. And then after that, I shifted to corporate America, worked at AT&T for 13 years. So that big chunk of space was some of the most valuable time. I probably should have been in an entrepreneur space, but many variables in my life led me down that path. And then it was just time to get into this space, mainly my daughters. My first daughter was born in 2013. Her name is Yasmin. Yosemite for the Iranian followers out there. And my wife and I were both executives at AT&T at the time. She was executive on the marketing side, and I did sales and distribution. And if anyone out there works in corporate America, you can resonate with this. You wind up working all the time. It's just the way it goes, especially if you're ambitious and you're very motivated to move up quickly. You can't work 40 hours a week. No one mandates you to work more than that. But if you want to separate yourself from the other 300,000 employees, for example, you want to give more. And that more translates into waking up early in the morning, getting on your laptop, drop your kids off at school or get off at school at the time, go to work all day, come home, spend an hour or two with your children, and then back on your laptop for the duration of the day. Vacation, same thing. There were so many vacations where my wife would be watching my daughter and I'm on my laptop, or my wife will be on her laptop, I'm watching her daughter. And my wife and I met, we had dinner one night and said, this can't be it. Like, we're not around our child. We're missing out. My mother-in-law was basically raising her at the time, daughter. And we made the decision to try something new. And for us, it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. The way the comp structure is at most of these large companies, they're bonus based. And your bonuses are typically 3 years in arrears. So if you leave, you're forfeiting those last 3 years of bonuses. So 50 or 60% of your comp, maybe 70%, depending on which company you're at, are bonus based. And then you're 3 years in the rear, you're giving up 50, 60, 70% times three. In our case, times two people. So, and you said it earlier, we had just bought this beautiful new home, a couple of nice new cars, new baby. And to make the things more complex, my wife became pregnant at this time with her second daughter, Ariane. They're about 15 months apart. She couldn't keep her hands off me, Johnny. I don't know what to tell you. Actually, if for those who know my wife she's 10 trillion times better looking than me. So that's nothing but sarcasm. So we have made this decision to do this. And it was the scariest, most terrifying decision of my entire life. Because beyond, I don't want to get into personal matters, but there are other people in my ecosystem that we're financially responsible for too, outside of just our immediate family. So we just decided to put all the chips in the middle, and whatever we were comfortable with it, we said, whatever happens, if we go back down to zero. My wife and I have been married for 25 years. So at this point, we were 10, 12, 13 years married, and we came up with nothing, living on a couple of noodles every night. And we consciously told ourselves, if we went back to that, so be it. But the regret of not trying superseded the fears of having to go back to zero.
Absolutely fascinating. And especially the fact that you both were high-flying executives that were doing really well, and you can become a slave to the wage. And that's where a lot of people get trapped, don't they? Because you do become a slave to that wage. And they say the older you get, the more conservative you become. And then I saw a fascinating stat that I think not the founder, but what made McDonald's only became who he became, I think after the age of 50. And there are some stats of billionaires or multimillionaires, hugely successful people that became somebody in that sense after the age of 50. I think Warren Buffett made most of his money after the age of 50 as well. Whereas most of the mindset or most of the things out there, and I can understand it, they say start business as young as you possibly can do it, because you've got less you built up in terms of life, in terms of risk, you can take more chances, blah, blah, blah. But then the other school of thought is, from where you're coming from, you do learn a lot from corporate in terms of some of the kind of stuff that they teach you in the processes, structures, all that kind of things. I want to dive more. You've entered a situation whereby you've got a family, kids, young kids, and you've mentioned already that it was terrifying for you both. You had that kind of nerves and thinking, oh my God, are we really going to do this? Are we really going to do this? And yet you did it. Did you instinctively know at the beginning that you were going to be the success that you have ended up becoming? Or was it the case, this is the vision, this is the mission, let's just go for it and see what happens?
Let me throw one more variable. I loved working at AT&T. It was, to this day, some of my closest friends are from that time period of AT&T. I worked for some of the most brilliant people, and not to name drop, but these are significant because it shaped my reality. People like Ralph de la Vega, if you Google him, he was vice chairman, CEO. He sits on the board of American Express now and many other Fortune 50 companies. Glenn Lurie, he was CEO, president CEO. He was one of the architects of the first iPhone with Steve Jobs. Andy Shibby, the list goes on of these brilliant people who I got to learn from, and many firsthand. And it's like having lessons from Tiger Woods in golf. So like I had this incredible experience. So it was like a 13-year grad school for me, and I learned a ton, and I loved it. It was like a brotherhood that I'll never forget. As far as the latter part of your question, I think every entrepreneur goes into things with a positive outlook. We didn't think we're going to fail. We believe we're going to succeed. But business, as in relationships, as in life, is not a linear experience. I say this all the time. One of my biggest pet peeves is our podcasts or events where entrepreneurs speak, and they paint this beautiful picture of their entrepreneurial journey. That every decision they make was perfect and it was up and to the right the entire time, a straight line of success. It's complete bullshit. It is the biggest rubbish, as you Brits like to say, biggest rubbish of all time. Because every successful entrepreneur has had many pitfalls. I call them failures, but I don't think it's a terrible thing to say. And my wife and I, we were on the verge of bankruptcy on the first one, to the point that I just recently said it on my podcast, and I never told my wife, and I never keep anything from her. But we had to get a second mortgage on our home just to extend out the life cycle of our business. We were on the verge of losing everything. And I think for entrepreneurs out there, or people are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, you better walk in there expecting and embracing failure as part of the process. It's just the way it goes. I like to lift weights. I like to go in the gym. And anyone who's been in there and tried to lift heavier weights, you never put on your PR, your personal best, personal record, and lift on the first try. You lift it, it doesn't work. You go back to the drawing board and say, that didn't work. I got to do other things to get to that level. It's a good microcosm for business and in life. Every decision you make is not going to work. You might have the perfect plan in place. It will not work. That's okay. You get back, you dust yourself off, you pivot, you adjust, you recalibrate, you do it again. But this acceptance and embracing of the pitfalls and failures of entrepreneurship is a must. And not everyone was built for it. I have family members of mine who are brilliant people, but some of them should never be entrepreneurs because their human nature is very conservative and they don't deal well with failures. It doesn't make anyone better or worse. It's just different. I have zero artistic ability. I can't play an instrument. I can't draw something. It doesn't make me a terrible person. I just don't have those skill sets. And so to be fully honest with yourself and have this conversation in the mirror, if you will, about who you are, all your positive traits, and then your areas that you're not maybe not great at, and then focus on the positive ones. I know you hear a lot, focus on areas of opportunity. I don't really believe in that. I think if you're an adult, find the things you're really good at and just press on those, because there's something gold within these great things that we're born with and that we've developed over the years. If you just focus on those things, you'll be successful.
Yeah, just digesting that, because most people live in the shadows of fear and the fear of failure, that they almost want it to be a guarantee. But the thing is, life is inherently risky, whatever we do, whoever we choose, whatever we invest in, what we don't invest in, doing businesses, not doing a business.
John, just think about this. Sorry to cut you off. Just think about this. A business is an organism almost. It's comprised of many people, right? So we have 120 people here at Symbiotica. So it's 120 people have to come together for a common goal and then working cohesiveness to be successful. And their ability to work together in a direct faction makes them more successful. Now think about how complex this is. As one person, just managing yourself as a human being, the pitfalls of life, the ups and downs, all the changes that happen, it's hard to be one of one because we're so complex. Then when you get married, you're safe with significant other, you have two people with very diverse backgrounds and feelings and thought processes. And then somehow these two have to come together and make this relationship work and make it beautiful. And there's complexities there. Now multiply that by 120 people. So the odds of just walking into a scenario, and that's not even assuming the outside world, all your competitors who are doing things to alter your reality. They want to combat everything you do. So of course, this freaking thing is going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. You're going to fall and fall. To expect otherwise is insanity. I don't mean to cut you off, but you made a really good point.
I'm glad he did. And I recall a guy called Grant Cardone. He was in a space on X that I was on. And he was saying, what's the point of having a company if you don't scale it? Just have a job. You don't have to put up with all the grief and the hassle and everything else. If you don't scale a business, no point having a business. And speaking about that, what was your big breakthrough? You mentioned the hard times, about the fact that you're almost at the point of bankruptcy, second mortgage. When did things start to really change for you?
Yeah, so we had a couple of smaller ventures that we had modest success in these businesses. I love that Grant Cardone statement because he's right. those businesses were driven by my wife and I. So our time, we're actually spending more time on those businesses and making less money than our AT&T jobs. So they were successful, but not to the level that it made sense. The opportunity cost wasn't there. The first big break we had, though, was in the company that we referenced, that we were on the verge of bankruptcy. It was a chain of cell phone stores called Cricket Wireless. We're one of the dealers for Cricket Wireless. It's a cell phone provider here in the States. And we had built our first, I think, 3 or 4 stores, and we were on the verge of bankruptcy. And with the decision to make, our runway, we had X amount of money for 3 to 4 months of runway before we were depleted of funds. One decision was to start laying some folks off, de-escalating our market spend, and conserving money so we can extend this 3 or 4 months out to 6 or 7 or 8 months. That felt like death by 1,000 cuts. So we went the exact opposite. We said, we're going to take whatever money we have in 4 months. We're going to put it all in month 1. And by month 2 or 3, if we're bankrupt, then so be it. But at least we go out on our terms. As we like to say in boxing, go out swinging versus just waiting to be killed, waiting to die. And that changed everything for us. This aggressive approach. In sports, they said the best defense is a good offense sometimes. And that's the approach we took. And things started to change for us the more aggressive we got. And that was a very important learning lesson for me as an entrepreneur, as the leader of these businesses, is never be afraid to fail, because we wind up making terrible decisions. I'm not saying that it's good to be reckless, but if you're at a crossroad of being super over conservative or swing for the fences, I want my team to swing for the fences. In fact, we don't have many rules here at our office. We have a very relaxed environment where people come and go. There are no time clocks, none of that stuff. The only rule I have, though, is be bold and be brave. No one will ever get in trouble here for swinging or to taking a big shot, something creative and unique. No one will ever get in trouble for that, because we encourage that. I'd rather take 100 swings and miss 99 times, but that one you get would be revolutionary for us. Just not to pivot a little bit, but DEI has become really in vogue, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We never had a DEI protocol here. We just hire the best people. If you look around, the best people are diverse. All colors, all genders, sexual orientation, religious background, you name it, they're all different. They mirror normal society. But if you bring all these folks in that are different, but force them down a small tube of decision-making, you've got none of the benefits of the diversity, because now you're making decisions with one viewpoint. You'll never win that way. The beauty behind DEI, besides equity and being fair, is if you allow your people to be creative and be themselves and bring viewpoints and tactics and strategies from their unique upbringing and their background and what they've experienced, you wind up finding solutions that no one has ever heard of. And that's what we want to foster. And that's the learning I had from my first business, is bold, brave, unique, come up with something against the grain. Because if you join a business vertical, like in my case, the cell phone world at that time, cell phones were already up for 30 years. So if you just cookie cutter the tactics everyone else used, where you're 30 years behind, inevitably you're going to fail. So unless you're bringing a new product in, which we weren't, the only way you can succeed is to bring in tactics and strategies that were so unique that would disrupt the industry, which is what we wound up doing. And we're doing it at Symbiotica. Everything we do here, by most definitions, is insanity. They go against the grain of anything they teach at the London School of Economics or at Harvard Business School or at Wharton or Booth. But we do it because we're late in the game in the supplement space. So we had to do things that were completely against the grain. And we built our tactics from inside out with that methodology, that thought process.
Yeah, because timing is everything, isn't it? In terms of entrepreneurialism, you need good timing and you do need luck as well to go your way. And then obviously that kind of tenacity, that grit, that never say die kind of attitude, why I describe the bouncy bum factor. When it comes to Symbiotica, what you do is natural and organic kind of supplements where you're very focused on that from what I understand. And I think the mission statement of what you said is to empower people to take ownership of their health and live with intention, with one healthy habit at a time. And sometimes with the kind of chemicals industry or supplements and stuff like that, there is the kind of thing here in the UK, oh, what's in it? Is it good for you? Is it not? And you get mixed kind of signals from scientists. You get that with everything with scientists. You say 1 minute, oh, meat's good for you. Oh, actually, meat's not that good for you, blah, blah, blah. And I love the fact that you concentrate on natural and organic and you go into the vitamin space. Can you talk more about Symbiotica as a brand? Maybe some haven't heard of it, your ethos, what you're trying to do in terms of wellness and health.
Yeah, we're on a mission. And if you come to our office, which next time you're in the States, I would love to host you here. The energy here speaks for itself. We talked about it earlier. We don't have a lot of rules here because people aren't here because of a paycheck. They're here because they want to be part of this movement, this mission that the team is on. We want to help people live healthier, longer, and happier lives. And you're right. Depending on which expert you listen to, there is a vast array of recommendations. Dairy is good, dairy is bad. Meat is good, meat is bad. Veganism was great, and now people are saying maybe it's not. It's all over the place. I think our jobs aren't to change the trajectory of what people do with a finite approach to health, because everyone is different. That's the reason you keep hearing different stuff from different experts is the truth is everyone's bodies are slightly different. They metabolize things different. They process things different. Some people have cholesterol issues just because they're just genetically, they're just predisposed to high cholesterol. So there's all these issues. But one thing we know for sure is you can, whatever your baseline is, you can improve that almost immediately. And we will never sell a product saying this product will change your life. That's not how things work. We want to work together as a team here. So if you're not working out, walk a little bit every day. If you're walking every day, run a little every day. Run a little day, go run and lift some weights every day. If you're eating unhealthily, if you got to go to McDonald's, I don't recommend it, but cut it down to once a week, once a month. Our supplements are designed to fill in the gaps because unfortunately it's very difficult now, especially in big cities. Are you in London?
Yeah.
The largest cities are much more difficult to get true organic food. It's got to be shipped to you from all over the world. And the soil has been drained of the minerals it requires to produce good quality, nourishable foods. So our jobs are to help fill in a gap, not to solve the problem. But if you see the responses from our customers, we just surpassed our 4 millionth unit sold recently. And so 4 million times plus people have gotten healthier because they took our products. But if you see the reviews that they sent us, we can't post many of them because of the HIPAA laws here in the United States. But they submit their lab report results and they show their labs today versus a year ago. And it's completely upside down. It's improved so much because now we're able to work together to fill in those gaps. So our ethos is that we're on a mission. We fed 100,000 people last year that were in need. This year, we're going to feed 250,000 people. I already mandated that next year, we're going to put budget aside to feed 1 million people. We planted 15,000 trees last year. Many of us, the team, did it with our own hands, which was such a beautiful experience. We've themed up, I think, 30 or 35 beaches. We're trying to work with a couple of large organizations next year to clean up every beach in America. We've lived this life, man. This is not, customers are very smart. The biggest blessing of the internet and social media is it's very difficult to trick customers. And if you really live the life that you're presenting as a brand, people will resonate to it. And if you're full of crap, they'll identify you as full of crap, and that's when you get canceled. So the reason we've had this success, by the way, it wasn't 400%. Our first year in business, 2019, we did $1 million in revenue. Last year, we did about $100 million in revenue. So we're up about 100x in the 5 years. And that's not because of just brilliant tactics. I think our folks are very smart. It's not about just because of the best products, though I believe we do have the best products. It's because what we do is real and customers are smart and they can feel that this is not some fake construct to get you to buy. Like one of the things I'm most proud about, I have a couple of awards that I'm really proud about. I really don't care about the sales awards. I never even talk about them. One is our Best Places to Work award. It's Fortune Magazine does an award every year called Best Places to Work. You can't buy it. You can't fake it. Every member of the team gets an anonymous survey, 3 or 4 pages long. They have to respond to it. And then they add you to this list of 500 companies that make this list. So our first 3 years eligible, we were 5th and 3rd in the country. And none of the companies around us were bootstrapped, we're self-funded. Many of them have multiple rounds of funding, or they're public. We're a little old Symbiotica that funded ourselves. But the reason people love to work here is because we're all in it together in the same mission, and it's real and they feel it. And it's an emotional thing for us. Business school to teach you not to make emotional decisions. I used to have a boss that used to tell me, Elmi, facts and not emotions. But that doesn't apply to what we do here. It's very emotional. We do it with our heart and soul. And these guys do an amazing job. I'm really proud of my team. They give everything and then some.
You sound like a great boss, because I did a content piece about the top 10 signs of a toxic boss, because people don't leave companies, people leave people. And I've been a global headhunter for the last 26 years, working with startups, scale-ups all over the world to become unicorns, placed in the top 1% of talent globally. And culture is the most important thing of all. And I love the way you think about your employees and being bold, being in it. Musk has that kind of school of thought in terms of innovation, taking risks. He always says, don't get penalized or punished for taking risk. You don't innovate and don't take risks, that you could end up being fired. And when it comes to diversity, it's so true, because there are studies out there that say the more diverse the team, the better the results, because you're getting different things from different people rather than the one type of person. Because we have a lot of kind of either conscious bias or subconscious bias. We might have an affinity bias. Oh, they went to the same school as me, or, oh, I don't quite like that accent, or whatever it might be. And it can affect in terms of how you choose and how you select when it comes to staff. And with the life sciences and with the wellness space, because I had another very successful run-in on this podcast called Mo Sarimi, who has done very well in terms of the sun care space. And his company was, I think, going to be valued at something like $1 billion by Wall Street in around 2025. And he was saying that when he came from Iran to the UK, he made one promise to himself, that he was never going to be outworked. He was going to make sure that he was going to take advantage of the gift that he left Iran with the revolution, coming to the United States, that nobody was going to outwork him, when it came to business or in the world of work. So when it comes to like healthcare and wellness, we're now moving into an amazing time, I think. We've got AI and automation, which when it comes to jobs, is going to replace, they say, 40% of all jobs in the coming decade or so, especially those repetitive tasks. You've got the era of personalized medicine. You've got the anti-aging crew with Aubrey the Gay. You've got Ray Kurzweil, who's a futurist, ex-Google, talking about anti-aging, we're going to live forever, to singularity in 2045, etc. What's the dream? You've done incredibly well, from $1 million to $100 million in terms of revenue. What's the dream for you moving forwards with this brand?
Yeah, so a two-pronged answer. One is around, at some level, you have to talk business. So I'll give you the business view first, and then I'll tell you where our passion and heart lies. From a business perspective, we're forecasting a little bit over 200 million top line this year. We believe we can break $1 billion top line by 26 or latest 27. We're primarily a D2C brand, but we're launching in retail this year. We just launched in about 1,400 doors in the last 2 months. And then we have all the big guys. I won't mention on this podcast yet, but all the big guys are tuned up. We met with all of them, and we're looking on a cycle of launching in all of those doors. So by sometime next year, we'll be in close to 10,000 doors. And so that'll be really the white space upside of the revenue of the company. We'll have by 27 at the latest, we'll have $1 billion top line that puts us in a position of have a $4 or $5 billion valuation, which for our equity holders in the office, which many of our folks do have equity, I'm excited for them. It's going to be a great experience. From an emotional standpoint, where our heart and souls are at, we want to leverage our scale and this upcoming scale to help people. And we met with one of the, I won't mention the names, but you can read between the lines, the largest retailer in the world. Just met with them a couple of weeks ago. I flew out, met with them, and we want to do business together. But one of the things we talked about is, above and beyond sales, it'll be fantastic, it'll be great. What can we do together? And by the way, they blew me away of how open they were to having these conversations and how committed they were to doing stuff outside the confines of just selling a widget. And we want to work with these massive organizations that we'll have a business relationship with to alter from a very small level, we can alter the shape of humanity. We want to build, so some of the goals we have is to build 500 wells in third world countries who all have tough time access to water. We want to feed 10 million people in the next couple of years, people who need it, that we can do. We want to plant 1 million trees over the next 3 years. So these are the parts of the company that we live and we talk about daily. And that's what drives us. The revenue is important because without it, I have a lot of friends who are activists and I applaud them. But if you really want to change things, protesting is great, marching is great, running your congressman is fantastic. The way you can really make change though, is go make a couple $1 billion. And then rather than buying 1,000 Ferraris, I like Ferraris, I'm a big Ferrari fan, so Ferrari don't take me off the list. But rather than buying stuff that you probably won't use anyways, take a chunk of it. I'm not a socialist by any means. I'm a capitalist, level 1 million. So I don't think it should be mandated that anyone should do anything. But I think for me personally, in our organization, we're going to take some money aside and have fun with it and enjoy life and travel and buy the things we want, fine. But it still leaves a ton of money and resources and connections to really shape the world in a better place. My 2 little girls, my wife and I, for them, I hope they go to Stanford or Harvard or Oxford. I took them to Harvard. I spoke at Harvard a couple of weeks ago, at Harvard's business school, and I took my girls and they were blown away. But if they don't, it's okay. What I want from them is to be healthy and happy. And this last part is the most important thing for me, my wife and I. Give more to this world than you take. Just that simple. We all take. But if you figure out a way to give a little bit more, 1% more than you took, you can give that back. You made a net positive impact on this world. All of our times will expire at some point. And on that last breath, think to yourself, was I net positive or net negative to this world? That's simple. And as an organization, we want to be that. We want to crush it. We're going to do $1 billion. How many bootstrap companies have made it to $1 billion in 6 or 7 years? We started 5 years ago. 7, 8 years, we put up $1 billion top line. But that's not enough. We want to take that power and say, as an organization, we were net positive for this planet. We just weren't a money pumping machine that just took and took and took. And my girls, that's my wish for my girls. That's wish for my wife and I. And that's my wish for our company. And we're going to do that.
Absolutely fascinating, because entrepreneurship is very hard. 9 out of 10 startups fail within 6 to 8 years. 94% of entrepreneurs never earn past 6 figures. I think Deloitte did a study where 0.5% of startups become a successful scale up. And then when it comes to unicorns, which is $1 billion valuation type companies, there's only 64 of them in 2024 within tech sector anyway. So you have to have something special about you as an entrepreneur in terms of mindset, conviction, purpose, which all of the things that nowadays makes a great boss. It used to be the boss was the demigod. He used to be the all-seeing, all-knowing. If you don't like it here, you know where the door is. There's plenty where you come from. Ruled by fear. But I think people have changed. They become more purpose and mission-led, and you're certainly that. And especially sustainability. That's a big thing with a lot of businesses, but you're walking the walk rather than just talking it and putting it as a mission statement. Who do you admire, or who's been the biggest influence in your life?
My biggest influence on my wife, for sure. My wife, my hero is the picture behind is my grandfather, who we lost to cancer 18 years ago, 2 days ago, on the 27th, February 27th, 18 years ago. But he's still got my back. He watches over me still, and I've learned so much about being a man and being a leader from him because he was that guy. But my wife is my biggest motivation in life. She's my greatest accomplishment. If I lived 1,000 lifetimes, I couldn't do anything to supersede her. She's everything. And this is our 25th year together, married, 24 years marriage, 25th year together. So she's my biggest motivator and influence. But I've had a lot of incredible business folks, like the ones I mentioned earlier, Ralph De La Vega's, Glenn Lurie, Andy Shibley. These 3 specifically are the who's who entrepreneurs, business people in the wireless space specifically. And I've been blessed to have these voices. Not everyone has these mentors around them to guide them. There's not a week that goes by and I don't call one of them and get advice on something. Because businesses change, tech changes, but situational stuff kind of repeats itself. That's why history is such an important thing. Learning about the 1500s still helps because the same type of cycles repeat themselves in humanity and they repeat themselves in business. And having these contacts have helped me a lot. Elon Musk I've never had an opportunity to personally meet him. We were on a call with him a few years ago briefly, but I really appreciate and respect his boldness. I think the world needs more bold people because bold people like him and many others drive our society forward. Now, AI is terrifying. It's fantastic and terrifying at the same time. Technology is a net negative as well as like these phones change the world. But I just kind of a big argument with my daughter this morning for being on one too long because it also disturbs her social construct of being able to communicate properly as human beings. So everything has a push and a pull, but people like Elon have changed the trajectory of this world. And I think that I don't have Elon's IQ. I'll never have Elon's IQ. I won't be able to make the impact he makes. But I think we all take a lesson from people like him and say, what change can we make in our own ecosystems, at our own level? There are 8 billion of us. We don't need 8 billion Elons. We just need 8 billion people doing something positive. And my biggest motivation is my wife. My biggest business motivators are my AT&T bosses, who I still consider like my big brothers. In fact, their pictures are all in my office still. And my far away influences are people like Elon Musk who force the envelope on change.
Yeah, because we all need mentors and coaches. We're not born into this world with knowledge. Life's about knowing more, becoming better. Would you agree that you're really humble? And I say that because sometimes in the community, when someone does very well, there can be a sense of ego. Like the community is so many great things about being Iranian in terms of culture, in terms of history, in terms of the food. But sometimes it's I'm better than you because I know more than you. My family's better than you. I'm more educated than you, blah, blah, blah. We all have an ego, but can too much pride actually be a sabotage for success?
Ego is like a disease. It's like a cancer. And if you catch it early, like a cancer, it's treatable. If you let it fester, then it'll consume you as a human being. And I've seen it directly. I've worked with some of those folks who go past ego and become narcissists and sociopaths. And because I don't think human beings were built to have this much admiration and view on us. And social media has exposed us to that. If you have 500,000 followers and you're doing great things and you're posting beautiful things, you're going to get a lot of people saying you're amazing. And eventually you get enough of those and you start in the sports to say, believe in the press clippings. And it's a really dangerous thing that I don't think people can properly get their arms around until it's too late. I've been very fortunate. I have about 25 or 30 core friends that I grew up with, many Iranian and Afghan and others that we grew up since we're 11 or 10 or 11, 12 years old, and we're still brothers. We don't allow one another to venture outside ourselves. We get called out, including myself, including my great friends. And having that group to keep you grounded is such an important thing because no offense to anyone who's watching that we recently become friends with, but we don't really have a lot of new friends. We have a lot of new business acquaintances, a lot of new important connections, but we don't bring them into our inner circle of our kids and our parents. And that's reserved for the people I grew up with, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to keep me who I was in 1990 and 95 and 2000. Because the truth is, the more stuff you have, the more access you have to stuff, the more praise you get from everyone around you. It does become difficult to find flaws in yourself. And that's when you lose it, because the flaws are what makes us human and allows us to understand everyone else's flaws and be able to work within that conflict. And so I surround myself with people, executive team, mainly 3 or 4 of the people on this team are folks I've worked with in my other companies, and I brought them to this company because they're not afraid of telling me I'm wrong. And that's what I want. This company will never get to $1 billion top line revenue or $1 billion plus valuation because I directed every aspect of our tactics and strategy. I'm just not smart enough for that. I'm not below average, but I'm not Elon Musk. What I think I do well is have a level of humility to listen to experts around me. So one of my favorite lines is you hire the best of the best and you allow them to do their job. It's just mind-boggling to me if you hire a really amazing CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, which we have, name is Sal Aziz. He's one of those 25 to 30 guys that I grew up with, and he is a savant marketer. It boggles my mind you would bring in someone of that caliber and then override that person's decisions and strategy. Then save yourself the payroll and just do it yourself. If you really believe that. I don't believe I'm better at marketing than Sal Aziz. So the only thing we have to agree on, we meet and agree on budgets and the overall philosophy direction that we want our brand to go. But the rest of the decisions he makes, I find out when things are done. I get credit sometimes. I get messages, congratulations on this. I had no idea we were doing that. That's all Sal. But that allows us to be fast. We don't need 17 meetings to approve something. Sal approves it and he does it with budgets approved and he runs fast. That's how we went from 1 to 5 to 15 to 40 to $100 million in 5 years. Same thing with our operations, same thing with our tech, same thing with strategy and legal. These things, we don't need multiple layers of approval because I trust in their capabilities and they don't let us down. And if we miss on one, so what? We miss. We go right back and swing in again. We're not afraid of it at all. We're not afraid of anything here. The only thing we're afraid of is under helping our customer base. We can help our folks, and the faster and more aggressively we scale, the more we can help.
Yeah, that sense of empowerment and empowering people is a recipe for success, as you've clearly shown, and it works. Because it's true, sometimes you can develop the God complex. It can go to your head when you're successful and everything else, and everyone's praising you, and people can be sometimes susceptible to flattery, where they think they can do no wrong. But Steve Jobs, for example, one of the reasons why he was so successful in Apple was he did surround himself with people that was better than him or would have the bravery to challenge him, because some people saw him, Steve Jobs, he could get quite angry and stuff like that and everything else. But in fact, he wanted people to be strong in terms of challenging and have that personality. And in sport, the same with Alex Ferguson, Manchester United. He was a domineering figure, so successful, but in the dressing room, he wanted people with big characters because they made good leaders. You have more leaders, then you have more of a successful team. And as we come to approaching the end part of the podcast, a couple of last questions. Hardest lessons?
Yeah. I'm going to go back to my prior statement. Just embracing the pitfalls and failures that you're going to face. My first company, I was that guy, the guy who made all the decisions. And maybe it was out of ego. Who knows? Maybe I was getting to my head, potentially. It probably was. But I just wanted it to work so bad. And I'm one of those guys like Mo, you referenced Mo earlier. I outwork everyone. But I've identified early on that I'm fairly intelligent, but not the most intelligent. I have good experience, but I'm not the most experienced. So the one element that I could personally control was this amount of effort. So I outwork everyone. And that hasn't changed. I love that aspect of it. In jiu-jitsu world, we say you drag someone in the deep end and drown them, in the sense that you can outwork your competitors. So the fact that if there's a gap in talent, you supersede that with your effort. So I wanted this thing to work so bad. I was gripping so tight. I made every decision. I overrid every recommendation. And ultimately, we're on the verge of failure. Until we made this pivot, I listened to people around me. I humbled myself, took a deep breath. And I'm an aggressive guy by nature. But holding on tight. If you play golf, Johnny?
No, I love tennis. I'm a big tennis.
That's my main sport.
Andre Agassi.
Yes, we have the Symbiotica Open is happening right now. It's a WTA event, and it's called the Symbiotica Open. It's on this week. In tennis, is a perfect example. In order to get the proper whip in a swing, especially with your topspin, you can't grip this racket like it's going to break. You have to have some looseness. Your arm is nice and loose, and you get through the flow. And running a business is the same way. If you're too tense, and your decision making is too tense, and you're so worried about failing, and you have this monster grip, you prevent your team and your organization from being flexible and fast, and you wind up failing as a result. And this was an important learning lesson. These failures around, I made all decisions. I didn't allow anyone to be creative. I didn't create an environment where people feel empowered and relaxed and encouraged to take big decisions. All of these were leading to our company's demise. And so that was the biggest learning lesson. And now I over-index on all this stuff. Every chance I have to talk to the team, I say, guys, take a deep breath. I know it's been a rough week. We had all these, we're going through our first equity round now. There are investors in office, like today, about an hour, a bunch of investors are showing up. And everyone gets very tense. So I walk by and I make sure everyone takes a deep breath. Guys, nothing has changed. They're here because you guys are amazing. You guys have done this. This is the reason they're here. Continue to take a deep breath, be relaxed, be bold, be brave. And I promise you, if something goes bad, or my other favorite term is that this too shall pass. We'll brush it off and we'll do it again tomorrow. These were my learning lessons that all came from failures from this initial venture.
Yeah, because most people play with the handbrake on as opposed to the handbrake off in life.
Bravo.
And in tennis as well, the top 50 make a really good living, top 100, top 50 especially. But some of those players that play the Challenger Tour outside of the ATP, etc., or the main tours, they sometimes struggle because they are accumulating debt and they can't play with a sense of freedom. And then suddenly when things change for them and they get some results and they start earning some money, pay off their credit cards, they're now in a position where they're a positive as opposed to being in a negative. Their game elevates because they're playing with a sense of freedom rather than being restricted. And when it comes to this, what has surprised you in your career and journey today? And before I forget, I think your zone of genius, you've got a very high EQ level, and emotional intelligence is the most important trait, especially moving forwards in the face of AI and automation machines, to have in leaders.
I agree, by the way, not that I'm brilliant with EQ, but I do agree with you that understanding the individual is such a critical piece to be able to find out how to get the best out of them. And it's not on a piece of paper that says, if you do X, then we're going to write you up and you lose your job. That's a perfect recipe to get the absolute minimum you can from someone right above the threshold of termination. That's all you'll get until they find another job. So I agree with the EQ base. What's really surprised me is what the group of young folks has done here at Symbiotica. If you look at their resumes, this is many of them's first real job, or second real job. And given that room to breathe and excel, they've come up with things that I would have never dreamt of in my wildest dreams. Solutions to complex problems that we tried all the things that we knew to be true from business school or other businesses, but they think of things that has to do with new tech that we know of, but we haven't embraced. I'm 44 years old, so I'm still using things that I'm comfortable with from 10 years ago. Most of them are in their mid-20s, so this stuff is brand new, but they've embraced it, like AI, for example. We were ahead of AI. We started utilizing it a year and a half ago. For a company our size, we were writing AI-driven programs, which we have now, that firms 10 times our size won't do. And this just because we've given these young folks autonomy to do. Johnny, they blow me away, man. In a lot of ways, I'm very happy that we've had some exits already, put some money aside, and I'm part of this team because I would never want to compete with these guys. Their mentality is different. They're so brave and bold, and they come up with the most incredibly unique solutions you've ever heard of. And it's great because our mandate is to be crazy. I want a bunch of crazy people. And out of a bunch of crazy people, we got to find savant level solutions. And that's what surprised me. Coming in, the plan was we could only afford to hire people right out of college or second jobs because they'll work for X amount of money. And as we scaled, we'll bring in senior folks at my age or older to help cement some of the leadership. What's happened is we're just promoting all these young folks to senior level positions because they've done incredible things. And you asked me 5 years ago, but I think a bunch of our top tier executives will be 27 and 26 and 31. I would say you're crazy, but they are. And so it's been a great surprise, and I'm so happy. And what it does to the organization, people see that there's so much opportunity for growth, even in a small organization like ours, versus thanks for your hard work. We're going to bring in someone twice your age to tell you what to do. And that hasn't happened here.
Yeah, because you created that culture where people can express themselves, and that's testimony to yourself and your wife. And I'm a great believer when it comes to age, if you're good enough, you're old enough. Age shouldn't be a precursor to anything. Final thing, social media. You've become a bit of an influencer, to say the least. I think between yourself and the brand, you've got what, nearly 700,000 followers on Instagram? Do you do TikTok as well?
I don't do TikTok. I'll tell you, I do this with a pouty face. I'm protesting towards all the social stuff. And I'll just be fully transparent. Because we're going through this valuation round, equity round, our PR team internally, this is the way it works. I work for some of my folks internally. If they tell me to do something, I do it. One of our heads of PR said, you got to get out there more as we go through this valuation round and talk to these big banks. It's important that they see who you are. And that was the genesis of this. A couple of years ago, I had 300-400 followers and made one post a year or a year and a half ago. And I'm in it now. I'm in it because I've been asked to be in it, but it's not my nature. I don't like all that attention, but I do it for the company because ultimately I'm very passionate about this, Johnny. The folks who are here and they've helped us from the beginning, I want them to have not only a life-changing experience with us in this movement, this mission, but a financially have a life-changing experience where when we do go through these rounds and we have an exit, et cetera, that their life is altered. And if I have to get on social and put some posts and my wife made me walk the red carpet in Nashville or go to these events, then so be it. If that's my contribution to the team, I'll happily do it with a little bit of grumpiness.
I think you'd add loads of value. I could see you doing a business podcast of some sort. You got, what is it, Patrick Bate? He's flying, isn't he?
Yeah, he's crushing.
Yeah, he's got a great voice and he's a super smart guy. And
he's so good, man. He's so good. He's so good.
Yeah, his content is really good. And I think you would add a lot of value because I think people are yearning not for information, we're drowning in it, is wisdom. They want wisdom, pearls of wisdom. Where can people contact you next? What's the best socials and contacts if they want to reach out?
Instagram. I'm available on Instagram. It's my first and last name, Shahab Elmi. Simple at Shahab Elmi. I try to make myself available as much as possible. My wife says you spend too much time answering stuff on Instagram. But I remember myself trying to get contact with people that potentially help change my life. And if it takes a few minutes of back and forth on Instagram or maybe a Zoom or two, as I can, I'll squeeze as many of those as possible. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, because we all just want an opportunity. You might only get one big one and grab it and ride that wave. So I want to say thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation today. And I think the listeners will also enjoy it. For those of you watching YouTube, will enjoy watching it. So thank you so much, Shahab.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me, brother. Take care. Talk to you soon. Ciao.